Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is SockBot, and today we're talking about, well, basically all of the really gritty and mature stuff within Dreams. So if you are looking to make some sort of God of War remake, please do continue watching this video. So if you do enjoy this type of video, or enjoy seeing videos on Dreams and creative games in general, please do leave a like down below, and obviously subscribe to the channel if you do want to see more things like this, but as always, no pressure at all. So the reason that I chose this subject to begin with is because it's like 6 or 7 threads every couple months on Reddit, and so it's a constant topic, and clearly people are wondering kind of what the limits are with what you can make within Dreams. So the short answer is yes, that there are restrictions on what you can make within Dreams. We'll talk about that in a second, but basically the reason we know all of this different stuff is because we have a basis on it with Little Big Planet. So let's go back and talk about their policy first, and then we'll get into specifically what the restrictions will be when Dreams does come out in terms of the content that you want to make. So there are 2 ways in Little Big Planet that you could get your level removed or just taken down in general, and that has to do with copyrighted content and inappropriate content. Copyrighted content's pretty obvious. It makes sense that Media Molecule wouldn't want all of these Mario remakes being shown to somebody at Nintendo because then they could get their butt suit off. Inappropriate content, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated. So where were the limits of it in Little Big Planet? Well, generally anything that was kind of significantly pushing that level or the game in general above an E rating, and of course that's the ESRB, I think it's PEGI 7 in the UK, maybe different where you're from, but basically the everyone rating. So if you were to create a level that, for example, had some sort of violence or some sort of like drinking, like alcohol drinking in it, obviously that would be just slightly above the E rating that was given to Little Big Planet. So how does that relate to Dreams? Well, obviously with Dreams, that kind of copyright thing is something they can't really get rid of. So we can assume that the copyright content policies are going to be very, very similar in the fact that if you do post something with some kind of copyrighted character or symbol or sticker or anything like that, it is likely to be taken down if somebody finds it from Media Molecule. But then when it comes to inappropriate content, well, here we're going to have a lot more leeway, because as we've seen thus far, it seems like Dreams is kind of aimed at a more mature audience, and I don't mean like M mature, like 18 plus mature. I mean probably somewhere around the T rating. Now, why do I think this, and why does it kind of make sense? Well, if you look at all the trailers we've seen thus far, it has a lot more mature themes. I mean, obviously with the whole main kind of story mode based around this one tall noir guy that looks super depressed, it seems like it's going to be a bit of a darker theme this time, which is totally cool. Now, given that the content has a more mature theme, even if that maturity level is only aimed at like minimum age 13 or so, we can assume that that is going to translate over to some sort of T or 13 plus rating. With a higher rating, we have a wider breadth of levels to make, so depth for the different tools we have, and now we get breadth with a higher rating. Obviously, this is speculation, but based on what we've seen thus far, it would make sense, because it would give us options for a lot more types of levels to make without such a heavy restriction of being restricted to making every single level acceptable for everyone, even kids. That being said, there are going to be some limitations. If we do end up with a 13 plus rating or something of that sort, there still will be limitations in terms of like excessive violence or excessive blood or more mature themes when it comes to like sex and drugs and stuff like that. Not that anybody would be really putting that in their levels, but again, if you were to make something that's on the mature level of Call of Duty or of God of War, that might be grounds for censorship in terms of your level being taken down. Please don't just run away and yell at Media Molecule for this. I think it's kind of something they have to deal with. They want this game to appeal to as many people as possible, and to get in the hands of as many people as possible. Honestly, if Little Big Planet had been rated M at the time where I got it, which I think was like, what, 8th grade or so, I wouldn't have been able to get it, or my parents would have had a lot of reservations for that. Giving it a sort of E or T rating gets it into the hands of, well, teenagers obviously, but also the rest of us. So if they do put that restriction on us, while it does restrict our content to some extent, it does get the game into a lot more hands, which for the game in general, and for us creators in terms of getting our levels and our games out there, it is generally good. Now, some of you might mention that little warning on the back of a lot of games here in the US that says like online interactions are not rated by the ESRB, which I know I keep saying that's the rating system here in the US. That definitely applies to online interactions, which has to be with like people to people talking to each other, and it's basically meant for games like Call of Duty, which I know has an M rating, but it allows that game to not be responsible for its users saying stuff online that's really aggressive, and that is an exception to the SRB rating system. Now, when it comes to content, it's very, very, very hard to get exceptions for that. And we've seen that with a lot of games before with user created content. And obviously, Media Molecule has this policy themselves where they don't even want to get into that because we saw how they would remove levels in Little Big Planet. It doesn't mean you can't make a God of War remake. I know I keep saying God of War, it's just the most aggressively violent. It's not saying you can't make a Manhunt remake. If you know what that game is, it is a very violent game, but it is an interesting game in terms of talking about what should be allowed within video games. But anyways, it will allow you to make something like that, and that's totally fine. The only restriction is being able to post that online. You will be able to post that online, but obviously when you post it, the more people that see it, the more people are likely to flag it as inappropriate content, and the more likely it is to be taken down. That being said, it is possible to make these games and share them with your friends, for example, or alternatively to share them on different platforms like YouTube, for example. It's not like Media Molecule is going to take down your channel or your, whatever they're called, your planet, whatever they end up calling it in Dreams, just because you created something for yourself or for yourself and friends or for the internet, as long as you're not posting it on their service. Because if it's outside their service, well, they're not responsible for it, and frankly, they probably don't care. And honestly, that's really exciting because Dreams is a game and it's a community, but it's also a platform. Just because you create everything there doesn't mean that everything that's created within Dreams has to stay in Dreams. I mean, that's the entire basis of my channel, so I hope most people like share that kind of sentiment because gosh knows I do. And honestly, I'm very excited about that. It's cool that we get to use this platform, and even if there are restrictions on the platform, there are other ways to share that kind of content. Media Molecule is not restricting us from making the content that we want to make or that we want to share, and it's not restricting our creativity. It's just trying to stick to their own policies, which is just totally okay. It makes sense for them as a company. But regardless, let me know what you guys think. If this is making you angry, if you would rather the game be rated M and literally just be aimed at people who are trying to take it super seriously, or aimed at people who are more serious about creation in general and therefore removing all the restrictions from it, let me know. Because obviously, in general, I do not like censorship. I think most Americans probably hold that whole like free speech above all else, but again, this isn't really censorship to me. This is just a company making a game and trying to stick to all the rules that this whole country has around video games. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and obviously thank you very much for watching. If you do like the new background, let me know. If it's kind of distracting, also let me know, because yeah, I'm like literally just turned myself this way, but you can see I have some animals there in my hats. You might not see me wear hats much on this, but that's just because they cover my eyes and don't work with my lighting. So hope you all are doing very well, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Okay, bye. Bye. Bye.